Do you ever feel like you're juggling a million versions of yourself and still dropping the ball? Like you're switching hats all day, professional, partner, parent, friend, and no one really sees what it takes to just be you? Yeah, me too. Welcome to Hat Rack with Hannah. I'm Hannah, therapist, entrepreneur, author, podcast host, and also a mom, partner, daughter, friend, basically a professional hat wearer. I created this space where you don't have to minimize what you're carrying or rush past it. Because the truth is, you can have big dreams and feel overwhelmed by the roles it takes to hold them. Both get to exist. Here we slow it down, call it what it is, take some hats off, and figure out what actually belongs in your rack. So take a deep breath. You can set something down here, and let's get into it. I'm Hannah, your pod host, and today we have a fabulous guest joining us from Costa Rica, Dana Shalit. And she is an entrepreneur, impact consultant, and philanthropist with over 2 decades of experience in charitable sectors. She is the founder and chief impact officer of House of Impact, a strategy and consulting firm supporting the next generation of wealth stewards through value-aligned giving and impact strategy. Her upcoming book, Pathways to Self, The Path to Purpose Through the 9 Steps of Self-Realization, August release date, coming soon, reflects on how a deeper relationship with self can align us with our authentic purpose and activate our unique contributions to the world. Well, welcome.
Thank you. So good to be with you.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you, and what an incredible bio and just what you do. Recently on the podcast, we have talked about alignment and what that actually means versus like the buzz of it all, right? And you kind of, your book and just the work you do and aligning with your path to purpose. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey, isn't it? I think for all of us, one of my favorite quotes is that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backward. So it's, I think that is very much has been my journey, very unscripted, unlikely, unexpected to myself, because I can say that I had a very different vision of what my life was going to look like. And I would say there was probably a throwaway. My purpose was always underneath it all. Looking back, I can see how obvious and glaring it was, but the path to getting there was maybe a little bit more unconventional.
Okay.
And here we are. And I'll tell you more about that, of course.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah. Well, please, and tell us more about that. Like, I guess, what has your path been? And now that you're doing the work that you do, how are you able to reflect back on it and see that purpose? And why do you think you didn't see it when you were in it? Because I think a lot of our viewers go through that.
Of course. I think so many of us do what we think we should do. So I guess I'll rewind to where I start my book, and that is almost 20 years ago. And at the time, I was living and working in downtown Toronto. I owned my own event production company. I was producing fashion shows and fundraisers, and on social media, everything looked really, really glamorous, the dresses and the heels and the speeches and all those things. But the more I did that, the more I felt like there had to be something else out there. Like, I think it's Jim Carrey that said, I wish everyone could be rich and famous to know that's not the path.
Yeah.
And it was very much that experience of like, I'm getting what I thought I wanted, and yet I'm still unhappy and unfulfilled. And at that time in my life, a friend of mine who was a psychotherapist asked me a question, and she asked if I'd be interested in receiving a past life regression. And I had no idea what she was talking about, but I said yes. And it sort of exploded my self-awareness. And it's like that moment where I was someone before and then I was someone else after. That was my experience almost 15, 20 years ago. And since then, I've been following the breadcrumbs.
Oh, very interesting. Well, so tell us more about past life regression work and how it changed your life and how you're kind of working with it now.
For sure. So I'll call it PLRT, Past Life Regression Therapy. So, and this is not about arguing for its validity. Okay. So I feel like I want to start by saying, I'm not here to say that the past lives I've witnessed or experienced are real. To be honest, I don't have a way of proving, and past lives is not something that you can necessarily prove. But what I can share is the relief and the experience I had otherwise afterward. So past lives regression therapy is a fancy way of saying you go into a deep state of meditation and relaxation. A therapist would take you into the alpha brainwave, which is the 95% of the subconscious mind. And while in traditional hypnotherapy, once you're in that brainwave, you would start to talk about scenes and experiences that are in this life. In past life regression therapy, you allow your mind to travel to another time, another place. Essentially, you start to see scenes unfold in your mind like a movie, where you are the experiencer, you are the leading character, and it's all through those eyes. But I'm not necessarily in the same body I'm in now.
Okay.
So in that case, in that first past life regression therapy session, I saw myself as an elderly woman in another time, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And I experienced a full end of life cycle, which was, I know it was pretty deep, pretty intense, and not painful, but very much a spiritual experience. And when I came out of the other side, I had my first connection to all encompassing light for the first time in my life. I had connected to true, deep love, and I wasn't me, and I wasn't the person I had become in that regression. I was neither. I was the space in between. And since then, I've been sort of chasing that big aha moment in different ways. Not chasing, maybe that's not the right word, but exploring maybe is a better word.
Well, and with that deep state, I think this conversation can scare a lot of people, not my listeners, because they know what we do here. But they know damn well the conversations we have. But it scares people, like how the depth of this.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that scared person? Or how would you explain your experience?
So there's in my opinion, there's no reason to be scared. And the same why people wouldn't want to go in hypnosis and explore scenes from this life. We have to allow ourselves to be impacted by what's already impacting us. So if my mind wants to make up an entire life so that I can understand the root of my loneliness on a spiritual level, then I'm okay with my mind being, the most creative Steven Spielberg of all time, right? I'm okay with it. A good past life regression therapist or hypnotherapist, which I'm a clinical hypnotherapist now. I did it for fun, and I've worked with hundreds of clients at this point. It's not about reliving anything, it's about reviewing. So you can honestly hover above it from a bird's eye view. And sometimes if I find it's getting a little intense, I actually pull people right out and I say, just watch it unfold. What are you learning? What are you experiencing? What are you seeing? So it's not about reliving anything. And I've seen crazy experiences in this mind of mine, whether I made it up or whether it's true, it doesn't really matter, because the spiritual insights I received on the other side of whether it be hypnosis or past life regression therapy or NLP or deep transcendental meditation or any of those deep dives, the relief on the other side, the learnings on the other side are always worth it for me.
Well, and I love that you also make that distinction, because I feel like, especially in like my therapy world, right? Oftentimes the deep work that people do is like reliving and re-traumatizing themselves in order to process through things. And when you're with a trusted provider, you will not be re-traumatized by things that you review. But I feel like that's the common misconception, is we don't review it, we relive it. And so I love that you make that distinction, and also that it, from by a clinical therapist, that you have the trauma-informed lens to pull people out and make sure they're just reviewing in order to learn from it versus re-experiencing that can cause more harm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say specifically where in hypnotherapy, it's like a fancy way of saying you're doing therapy in a deep state of the subconscious, meaning a lot of the experiences people see are not like those big, deep, traumatic experiences. They're actually the small little falls from grace. The first time you realize you were separate from other people. The first time you felt like who you are at your core is not enough. The first time you felt like you are unworthy or that you don't belong. And those falls from grace are not necessarily these big explosions in life. They're sometimes really small, little T trauma versus big T trauma. And when you realize when they began and why, it's like you can let them go at a whole different level.
Yeah.
You can be like, I'm not that kid who made that distinction anymore. And in past life regression work, because you allow yourself to see a full life in its totality, the peace on the other side, when you review that life, also gives you that same sense of it doesn't really matter. I'm here in this crazy life school, earth school, to just to get closer to the truth of who I am, which is love.
Well, and tell me more about what people can expect to learn from past life regression, right? Because I think we often think like, okay, well, a lot of people who don't want to deal with their things are like, I don't want to go back. But I think when we do go back, we learn like, oh, wait, I didn't realize that I'm carrying something that's not only not mine, but not even in this lifetime. And like, I don't have to do that. And we
Yeah.
often have patterns that repeat into different lifetimes. So tell
Yeah.
me more about that.
Yeah, I think yeah, for sure the karmic loops that we see between lives are always really interesting. Again, I'm not here to prove whether or not it's real. I can just share that in the dozens of experiences I personally had, and this is not about, I've guided people through it as well. It's not what I do full time, but I have helped people. What I've seen for myself is when I realized that I am not that person and I'm not this person, and there is a whole level of spiritual truths that are consistent among between lives, spiritual truths like forgiveness and atonement and the power of keeping your heart open, especially when it wants to close. Those kind of big spiritual truths seem to appear again and again and again, no matter the human experience. You know, they
Right.
say that God, I'm going to talk about a lot of theories, and again, I'm not here to prove them, that God
Okay,
created
I'm here for it.
humans and its image so that we can, and in order to do that, we have to understand the opposite. So in order to understand love, we have to understand contrast and separateness. And
Right.
so in this earth school, the goal becomes to understand through these experiences the truth of who we really are. That's the hope.
No, it is. And I think it's also something that can seem so big that it's
Mhm.
easier to avoid instead of tap into, or
Yeah,
to
for
do it on a
sure.
surface level instead of the deeper dives, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And whenever, people are ready, there's no have tos, in my
Right.
opinion. So it's like I started down this path out of curiosity, like I said, and a yes, because I was a yes person. That's the only reason. Never did I ever think that I would become a clinical hypnotherapist, that I would have dozens of past lives regressions coming, that I work with some of the top teachers in the world in that sphere. I did it all because of interest and curiosity, not because I thought it was going to be my forever path.
Yeah.
And so, like you seem like you're a searcher, right? Like you're
Oh, for
open and
sure. I'm
curious.
so
And
open to
yeah,
all of this. So when you're
yeah,
saying like I'm not here to prove it right, I'm also, it's one of those things, having the conversations opens people's minds and gives different perspectives, and it's just listening to different perspectives, and it vibes with you, great. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. But I just remember a while back we had a listener ask a question about like how do you, and it was in our alignment series, and it was like how do I define or realize like the difference between comfort and alignment. This listener was trying to find herself again, and we were talking about how in order to find yourself, you actually have to figure out where you've abandoned yourself in just sitting in the roles that we're expected to sit in. And so the
hmm
fact that you found something so deeply impactful in your life by just being curious and trying something new is something we talk to our viewers about all the time. And just like, it doesn't have to be like you go commit to a 6-day retreat. Like it can be like you go to a meetup, go on a Reddit and scroll something new and read something different. And just so many different things can open our perspective. But I think it's something we shy away from so often when really we should lean in there.
absolutely. And I think there's different times in life. Like there are times where books have completely transformed me. After I received that first past life regression, someone introduced me to the book Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss.
Okay.
Have you read that book
I've
before?
heard of Brian Weiss,
Yeah.
but I haven't heard of the book.
So I think he was dean of Yale psychotherapy, maybe. And
Okay.
he was practicing, and one of his patients went into a past life regression on her own without him guiding her in. And he wrote this whole book about her experiences in past life regression. So
Wow.
after I received this myself for the first time, I had no idea what I was getting into. I went and read this book, which completely reaffirmed my experience
Everything. Yeah.
that I had no context for. And all of a sudden, this very famous past life regression therapist, clinical therapist as well, was telling me the exact same experience in a book.
Interesting.
And so again, a book can have just as much impact as a retreat, as
Right.
I'm doing a master's right now in conscious philosophy. Like
Oh,
that could
amazing.
take, you know what I mean? I know, so fun,
Yeah.
right?
That's so
So
fun.
it's so fun geeking out on what actually interests us
Right.
is a way of following those breadcrumbs.
Right.
And where I am now is a very different life from where I was 20 years ago, where I had just had that kind of pebble dropped into the lake of my consciousness.
Yeah. Well, and that's just, it's so huge to realize that it can be the little things that start those, pebbles,
Mm-hmm.
as you
Mm-hmm.
call them, and we need to pay more attention to them, but often we're so swept up in life that we're not noticing. And so it's also taking the minute to notice the pebbles.
Yeah, pausing, I think, is like, if I was to give one piece of advice to anyone who's in search of their purpose, is to get quiet enough, long enough
Hear it.
to actually listen, and likely
100%.
longer than we think we need to. I think the way my life worked is that I was forced into that quietness. I wasn't
Yeah.
getting quiet. And then boom, dark night of the soul, you're just going to sit there in it. And I
Yeah.
think that happens to a lot of people. And
100%.
I'm grateful for it now on the other side,
Yeah.
but in it was hard.
Well, and also, right, we can choose this instead of be forced into this. And that's also something like a conversation that we just need to normalize of like, you don't have to hit your lowest point to get silent. You don't have to go through it. We can do this preventatively too. Oftentimes, a lot of my clients come here when they've hit that spot, right?
Yeah.
Um, but getting
Or
quiet to hear it.
hit that spot, or when your body gets so sick that what is that famous phrase? If you don't slow down, your body will force you to. Isn't
Uh-huh.
like
Oh
the
yeah.
score? Yeah. I
I'm
was
one
sick
of those
last week and I
humans.
was like, yeah, I wasn't
Yep.
listening.
No, I was literally telling our viewers a while back that is like who I am. Like my body will literally tell me and I'll be like, okay, and now we're done. Lovely. And we're shutting down.
Yes.
Well, and based on this whole conversation, like tell me more about your book and like what the 9 steps of self-realization are. Like fill us in, give us the tea.
So it starts with self-awareness, and that's really when I start to talk about my first drop into that consciousness bucket, which with that past life regression, and then moves into chapter 2, which is self-trust, which is we've been talking about. And
Yeah.
it's really about following the synchronicities and learning to listen to myself for the first time. That was what followed that first experience of self-awareness. And then from self-trust, I moved into self-discipline, which is something that, when people ask me, because I'm an entrepreneur, I've had a lot of different
Right.
businesses and companies. It's my passion. I love, supporting others as they build their dreams. And self-discipline, which is a very important part of self-trust, is taking the faith that you have in yourself and the integrity you've developed within yourself and doing the thing longer than you think you need to. So learning to trust to get comfortable with the journey versus the destination. The little things
So
that are
easy
as
to
easy.
say.
I was about to say easy to do and easy not to do. Like they're
I was
so
gonna
small.
say, yeah,
Yeah.
very hard to do and easy to say out loud.
Yeah. And that's why self-discipline for me wasn't about the marathon. It was it wasn't about the sprint. It was about the marathon. It was about learning how to do 3 small things every day for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah.
No matter what. Again, knowing that it's as easy not to do as it is to do. And the discipline that I curated and early on in my life, and I mentioned I was in maybe I didn't. I was in the network marketing world for a long time, meaning I was a brand
Okay.
ambassador and a coach and a speaker. And I coached a lot of other brand ambassadors how to do the same thing. And eventually I had thousands of others, brand ambassadors I was coaching on sales and how to do what I did. And that was all based in doing the things I didn't want to do or need to do, but doing them consistently anyways for years.
Okay.
And that base of self-discipline completely transformed not only my success, but my purpose in this world.
Well, and give me an example of one of like the three little things. Like, where
Okay.
can people start? Because when we
Love that.
have these conversations, people are like, that's too much, or they'll go full overhaul and be like, I'm going to redo my whole life.
And then it's like the same people who start at the gym at the beginning of the year.
Oh, I love
And
that.
after a
Yep.
week or two, they're not going, right? Because
Yep.
saying I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week for the forever when you have not gone 1 time a week
Right.
is really hard to maintain, right?
It
So
is.
I
And
would
it's setting
say
yourself up for failure, right? Like, that's not going to go
exactly.
well.
Not going to happen. And it takes 21 days to create a habit, right? We've heard that
Right.
before. And then it takes 6 months to make that habit completely subconscious, right? So you essentially want to get to a point where you're doing something consistently for a minimum 6 months, then it becomes part of your identity, right? So you start small and you create a lot of accountability around it. That's where I would say we're really easily letting ourselves down, a little bit harder to let other people down. That's why coaches are so important, right? Or that's why saying what you're going to do out loud to other people is so important. So things that are easy to do and as easy not to do
Yeah.
is a morning routine, 10 things you're grateful for,
Yeah.
5 minutes of silence, 10 pages of a good book. Now, the next thing I'll say is that your mind will always move away from what's uncomfortable and towards what is comfortable. It's going to move away from what's not joyful and move towards what is joyful.
All right.
So whatever habit you want to create, whatever self-discipline habit, it needs to be surrounded by joy. So my morning routine with my coffee and my 10 pages in my book, it's like the most incredible, like enjoy the most joyful thing I can do. So
Right.
creating those circumstances so it's not a have to, but a want to, right?
Right.
And
It's
so
something you look forward to.
so at the gym, for example, something I did is I started listening to fantasy books at the gym while I was working out.
Ooh.
I know.
Okay.
And so now I cannot wait to get to the gym so I can listen to my book. It's my hour of
Yeah.
reading smutty stuff, and I'm so excited for it.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things we can do to get excited for, even when we're stretching the muscle, even when it's not quite yet part of the subconsciousness.
Well, and I
Yeah.
love that you bring joy into it because I often, like when I'm working on habits with clients or with my humans, right? Like, okay, well, I'm going to do this thing. Well, yeah, we're on day 10. I'm done being grateful. Like, every time I write something grateful, it's just like empty or it's not motivating me or it doesn't push me. But like the first few days, it really did because I got really creative with it or I really put thought into it. But now I'm just doing it to do it to check the box. So, making that difference and or distinguishing that difference that it has to have a joy factor is
Mm-hmm.
so huge.
Yeah, and that's why they say your reason why you're doing it has to be bigger than your reason why not. And
Right.
so for me, when I don't have a morning routine, I lack patience. I don't love who I am when I am not patient. I don't love who I am with the people I love. And
Right.
so for me to do the morning routine is okay, I'm going to do it because otherwise I know what's on the other side. Again, your mind's going to move away from what it doesn't want and towards what it does want. So
Right.
that self-awareness, those sparks, those inner conversations that we almost have to have with ourselves where we start to create new neural pathways of the mind. Because like what for me, sitting at home, not working out, eating 10 grilled cheese sandwiches in a row may feel great in that moment, but it's not what's going to make me feel great, later on this
Right.
afternoon.
No, absolutely. I
Yeah.
think there's also another distinction. Like I'm just thinking the shoulds in
You
routine.
should.
Like, for
Yeah.
example,
Have
I've been
to.
in PT for like ever since I had my daughter. And I go through these phases of like, I am so over it. I hate it. But like, I should put it into my morning routine, right? Or I'll do it because after I do something fun or whatever, like so many ways to motivate myself. But at the end of the day, I hate PT and I'm going to continue to hate it. And that's what it is. But when I had to give up my favorite thing, which was my workout routine, which is riding my Peloton, love my Peloton, but I had to give it up. And so I was like, okay, I used to be a swimmer. So I got my ass back in the pool and I
I
love
love
it. I love it. Like it fuels me, but there are days where I just go and do laps and I'm like, ugh. But there are days where I'll go do laps and then I'll just chill for a minute and I'll like hang out in the water and it's the difference.
Yes.
And like,
Yes.
yes, we're gonna always be on time crunches and stuff like that, but finding the joy factor, even in sometimes the things you should do, but
Mm-hmm.
figuring out what if you have to do something, like figuring out how you can implement the show or the joy to turn it from a
Totally.
should to a joy factor is so important too.
Yeah, and also giving ourselves some grace because we're not always going to
Oh
feel
yeah.
like there is nothing I always feel like doing, pretty much. There's
Yeah.
literally nothing. I was just sick for a week and I watched like every episode of like anything on TV. Like I'm over
Well,
it.
yeah.
You know what I mean? There's nothing. The mind likes change as well, right? So it's
Right.
always going to want to move and stretch and expand. Yeah, I agree.
Which is okay.
Yeah.
Well, and tell me about like what is the first step to self-realization? Because we're talking about accountability and trust, self-trust, and
Self-discipline is number
thank
three,
you.
third
Yes,
chapter. All good. Um,
self-discipline.
Yeah, and so the first step is that self-awareness. It's like that spark, and it's that for me, it was the question of there must be something else out there for me. Like there must be
Okay.
more to this. And an interesting fact is that as I started to move toward through the steps of my own life,
Yeah.
there was more, but there was also less. I also had to become used to being understanding that there isn't more, that all we have is
Ah,
and learning how to
like you were
find,
doing too much.
yeah, I didn't know how to be in the present moment. I didn't know how to find joy in
Yep.
the present moment.
Yep.
Truly, truly. And
Absolutely.
what happens when we don't live in the present moment is that it either we're looking at the future and getting anxiety, or we're thinking about the past and we're getting depressed. So
Yeah.
anytime someone is in those two states, it's because we're not present in our body in the moment. And so as I moved through self-discipline and I started to have some incredible career success. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden I was at the top of my game, the top 1%, speaking on stages. Professionally, I had everything I had ever imagined, and I was completely losing myself in it.
Yeah.
And that actually brings me to chapter 4, which is selfishness, learning how to also receive and put myself first.
Yeah.
And it brought me into that very deep dark night of the soul, unfortunately, as I moved through. What I realized was that there's a lot of people that will have issues with your boundaries when they're used to you being the number one giver.
Yep.
And for us women specifically, it's very
Absolutely.
natural to be a
Yep.
giver, and we're not taught how to receive.
Right.
Actually, we're frowned upon.
Well, and we're also even more like to push that further, right? We're stigmatized. Like if you take time for yourself, you're selfish. I
Exactly.
try and
And
remove that word from everyone's vocabulary. I hate it.
I just did it. You wouldn't have seen it necessarily. Because it's chapter 4, I did a whole post about it on social media. And because when I was starting to put boundaries in my life, when I was so burnt out. It had been years at the top of my game, giving, giving, giving. And all of a sudden, the things that gave me joy before, nothing was giving me joy. I was
Yeah.
so depressed. And when I started to take space, I actually had a friend and colleague at the time say to me, "You're so selfish. I can't believe you're doing this." And it was the most painful thing I could have heard,
Yep.
because as a philanthropist, as someone who's given my whole heart to other people, it was hugely painful. And it also led to my reclamation of the word. Now, if someone was to say to me, "You're so selfish," I would say, "Thank you. I've been working really hard at that."
Yeah. And I think it's really getting to that point, right? And accepting that. Like I'm
Yeah.
told all the time by people, because I always have entrepreneur, therapist. I have 3 businesses going on right now, right? Like I just always have something going on. And I'm writing 2 books right now, and everyone's like, "You're such a powerhouse. Like, how do you do it all?" Right. And it's like I fill my cup first. And it's a
Mhm.
shift that I'm still making with a lot of people in my life. And I cannot tell you the horrible responses I've had from some of my longest relationships and the people who showed up for me and are like, hell yeah, you put yourself first. Like, I'll hit you up some other day. Or how can I support you? Or like, hey, it sounds like you're tired and burnt out. Want me to come over and just sit with you and your partner and your daughter? And like the way people respond, like you also are giving people the ability to respond how you authentically need them to. And that's changed my entire life.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. It's like the only people who have issues with your boundaries are the people you need boundaries with in the first place. You've heard that one before. Yeah.
Oh,
Couldn't be truer.
absolutely. Yep.
And it's changed my relationships. So now I am in reciprocal relationships in my life.
And it's so buzzwordy though, the like purging of relationships and cutting people off because they don't hear you or they don't align with your boundaries. But I think that's just such an oversimplified way of putting it because I don't think it
Mhm.
has to be like cutthroat how it's portrayed to be either. It's kind
Be
of just
gentle.
something too that is a fizzle. Yeah. It's like I'm just
And
gonna not put energy there and like that's okay.
that does happen. And it
Yeah.
is okay. Yeah. And it
It's
is
also
okay.
called it being an adult, honestly. Like it doesn't even have to be this big concept. It's also like, oh, I now have 50 more responsibilities than I had when I was in my 20s and you were my first priority, right? Like that's also
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah. And I had to like, I probably made some errors in that time in my life. Like I probably
Oh,
did overcut some relationships where that
oh yeah.
didn't necessarily need to be cut. That could have done, and it's okay. It's part of that self-acceptance that also has to happen, which is
Right.
it's actually the next chapter is all about self-compassion and self-acceptance. That is where it leads to. And when I started to sort of reclaim my selfishness because I was so burnt out, it was almost like it was preparing me for what was coming next, because in the next phase of my life I actually started to lose a lot of close people to me, and I started to grieve in a really deep way. My grandmother and my soulmate passed away in many ways, and my cousin and my uncle, and it was all in a very short period of time.
Wow.
And it's almost like the selfishness that I was learning prepared me for that dark night of the soul, where I had no choice but to sit with myself, and because I couldn't give to anybody else, I
Right.
wasn't capable.
No, absolutely. It's interesting you say that. Oftentimes when I have anyone in my life lose someone and they're
Mhm.
grieving, the grief process has been so stigmatized where we literally give everything to others and we never put ourselves first in grief. I recently had an experience where a friend lost somebody and was trying to navigate, like, well, how do I support? What do I do? And I was like, you got to put yourself first. What do you need? What would
Yeah.
feel good for you to have closure? And it's just like the amount of times I have that conversation and push people to be like, no, what do you need? It's not about the funeral, about like all the pieces that we've made this to be. It's about what you actually need. And so I urge people to be selfish in those moments. And it's so important. And it's the difference in grief that has closure and grief that it stays a wide open wound your whole life.
Yeah, and it comes in waves. I was
Oh,
sharing with you before we got on that I lost my dog a few months ago.
right.
It's in full waves. It's in moments, and it's really one of my favorite quotes there is that grief is love's souvenir.
Yeah,
So it's how we remember, right? Like it's
right.
grief is such a necessary part of life, and it's so weird to me. I think the first time when I saw my grandmother die, I couldn't believe how little I knew about death.
Mm,
That was probably the biggest shock. Like what happens to the body when it goes. Like there
yeah.
are there are things that are known things that we don't talk about in this
Oh,
lifetime, right?
absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
and it's so important to have those conversations and also realize that is why death is so personal. What I remember and what is important to me might not even hit your radar. Like I
Hmm.
talk all the time with one of my aunts, lost her son, lost my cousin, about these memories that come up for me. And they're not even things she knew about or remembers, but they fill me. And it's my grief. But sharing it with her gives her like a slice she didn't know about, and it's so important to do that. And we often feel like we shouldn't, when really it's so powerful and fueling for everyone around you.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's a beautiful thing. It
It
really is. It's
is.
hard. It's a beautiful thing.
Well,
Yeah.
and keep walking me through these chapters. I love this. So we're
Yeah.
on step what?
So we're in
5?
self-compassion. Yeah.
Yeah.
So self-compassion. Yes, self-compassion. That was number 5. And that was an interesting one because at this point, I started to go back for a lot more past life regression work.
Okay.
And when I was starting the deep dives, I saw myself as I'm going to call it different characters, men, women, different ages, different experience, different times of life, almost like the biggest movie you've ever seen. And that's what I hope when you read the book is that you get to see a whole bunch of different movies in one.
Yeah.
But it created so much compassion for me because when I saw some bad things, and I saw and I was that, and I understood where it was coming from, I not only had compassion for other people and forgiveness for other people, I started to have compassion for myself and things I'd done that maybe did the best I could during
Right.
that time.
Oh, I love
So from,
that.
yeah,
I
it's
feel like
necessary.
too, well, and it highlights that like, self-compassion doesn't always start with us. Sometimes it starts with how we others view it. And that's also an okay motivator to get there how we need to. That's just authentic. Sometimes we can't have it for ourselves, but when someone can have it for us, we're like, well, why can't I do that for me?
Exactly. And it's really based in a forgiveness, like an inner
Yeah,
forgiveness of like we're doing the best we can with the tools and the experiences we have.
right.
And then forgiveness for other people, which is essentially saying like walking, like really having empathy and having being able to walk in somebody else's shoes. That doesn't mean saying what they did was okay. I think that's the biggest misconception about forgiveness. It's not
Yep.
about being like, you did X to me and that is okay. It's really just a letting go of saying, I'm like, I'm not going to carry it anymore. Like, you
Yeah.
do you, all good. I learned what I needed to learn and I'm just going to keep moving forward at this
Mm.
point.
I love that distinction because it
Yeah.
is a
So,
big misconception.
yeah. And it's, yeah, there's a great story. I don't know if you know about the story about the two monks walking by a river. And
I don't
it's a
know.
great, so yeah, so 2 months walking by a river, and it's time to cross the river, and they come up to an elderly woman at the side of the river, and one of the monks picks her up and carries her across the river, and they all get to the other side. They leave the woman there, and they keep walking and walking and walking, and all of a sudden, after hours and hours, the second monk explodes and he says, I can't believe you carried that woman across the river. We're not allowed to touch anyone or to converse. Like, there was rules around it. I can't believe you did that. And the first monk said, I put the woman down at the other side of the riverbank. Why are you still carrying her? And it's the same
Hmm.
kind of idea.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah, it's a good story. It's not mine, but I stole it.
No, but it highlights, right? Like we are always, especially as women in this world, right? We're always carrying other people's stuff. And sometimes we carry it way more than someone else's. And like it's just a reminder that we don't have to and shouldn't. It just takes pieces of our capacity that we oftentimes don't even have to give.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Self-compassion.
Yeah. So that's number 5. So number 6 is self-expression. And this was an interesting one for me
Well, it can be
because,
hard.
yeah, because especially what I believed expression to be, I believe expression was actually quite loud. And it
Okay.
turns out for me that expression was not necessarily this big loud thing. It was saying the thing, even when I was scared. Like, it was really
Mm.
self-expression to me was about courage, about having the courage to not only look at my truth, but share it
Yeah.
again and again. And for me, I did a course at the time with an amazing woman named Mama Gina. Have you heard of Mama Gina?
Mhm.
Mama Gina wrote a book called Pussy, a Reclamation. Every
Oh,
woman should read it. And she is a phenomenal teacher in feminine expression and the different layers and the different levels to feminine expression from, yes, speaking, but also sensuality and also receiving and all of the different levels that what it takes to be a woman. We have the feminine body, the female body has 800 times more nerve endings than a man's.
hmm.
And so she talks about learning how to push every key on the 88 keys of our own piano and like truly learning
Love
how
that.
to accept it and express it and have it be messy and have it be layered because we're not meant to live in this center
Right.
aisle. We have this huge range, especially as women.
Yeah. Oh, I love that too. I think it also ties back to your consistency piece, right?
Mhm.
Of like doing that on a consistent basis. It doesn't have to be you become like a rock star and like have to sing as a creative expression. Like just the consistency of saying your piece and like saying the things that you would be afraid of out loud and to others out loud and to yourself.
Admitting it. I think that was probably the biggest thing is the hardest part for me has been admitting those truths to myself first.
Oh yeah.
And then yet having the courage to express them to others that comes for sure comes next.
I just love your different take on expression. That's so cool.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you.
more,
Yeah,
it's
it's been
also more like accessible, right? When
fair
we think
enough.
expression, it's like, go write a book or
Yeah,
go, which is
exactly.
amazing. Do it,
It's
write the
okay.
book.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just, it's the small everyday things that are things we can actually do and that are approachable.
Yeah. And when it comes to writing the book, I had a mentor once tell me to write from the wound, not the scar. Sorry, from the scar, not the wound. And so when it comes to expressing on that level, sometimes when you're in it, it's really hard to express the thing
Completely.
verbally. but you
Yep.
can express it with your body. You can express it through dance. You can express it through art. You can express it by connecting with another person. Like, we're here to connect. So sometimes even if you say the thing and it's not clean, it's just completely messy and you say it wrong, that's the practice of
Right.
like being curious and listening and passing the ball back and forth in
Mhm.
communication with yourself and with others almost.
Yeah. Well, and it's also just to like on that, like it's also testing. Sometimes like when we're younger, we have different forms of expression versus when we're older. And sometimes it's tapping back into those younger ones because those are actually what you should be doing anyways. But also it's like, okay, what still feels good to me?
Yeah. And it's again, it comes back to that discipline. You're right. It's about a practice
Yeah.
of doing it, even
And
when
the
you don't feel
grace,
like
right.
it.
Well, and the grace too of like allowing yourself to experiment to like what actually is releasing things for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And getting it wrong. I think that's
Whew,
part of it.
so
I
hard,
mean,
but
like,
it's crucial,
it's
non-negotiable.
crucial. Exactly. Non-negotiable. You said
Yeah,
it. Said it. Yeah.
absolutely.
So yeah, self-expression was a beautiful one. At first it was very loud, and then I got very introverted for like a very long period of time. And it was around then that I moved to Costa Rica, and well, it was a few years after that, but it was all part of that journey of listening to myself, giving to myself, being patient with myself, and then having courage to do the thing.
And is that when you also shifted from like more corporate, kind of like what you were into something different? Or did
Yeah,
those
it
have
was all
different?
happening around that time. Again, that same question came up, which was like, there must be something else out there for me. Like, I had been in that business for almost a decade. I so much had happened. A part of that business in another country had closed down, and I was like, who am I? And if I'm not my job, and I'm not my friends, and I'm not the people who I lost, then like, who am I? You know,
Right.
what is this whole? And that's when I actually did hypnotherapy certification for fun. I
Oh,
never
so
meant to
that's when
be
we
a
did that.
I just was like, I'm going to just study some things. And I went down a rabbit hole and got my certification, and I started practicing for fun, just for the joy of it. And what happened was one person told another person. And before I knew it, I'd been working with hundreds of clients, specifically in hypnotherapy, not as a past life regression therapist. That's something I did a little bit later because
Okay.
sometimes people fall into past lives when they're deep in their own subconscious.
Oh,
And I wanted to know how to guide
yeah.
them.
Well, and I'm
Yeah,
sure too, like with your experience being one that impacted and changed your whole life, like that makes
exactly.
sense why do you go that way?
Exactly. But hypnosis was probably one of the most interesting things when it came to self-compassion, because again, what I started to see is that we're all the same. We all have those little T traumas. The big T
Yeah.
traumas might be a little bit different for everybody, but the little T traumas come from being like a human in this earth school. And so when
Yeah.
I have friends or clients that say to me, I just don't want to screw my kids up, I'm like, literally, it's your only job. You need to create enough contrast so that they can remember the love that they are. And it's part of being a human being living in
Right.
this world.
Well, and we have to lead by example, but also allow room for mistakes and forgiveness, or else what are we learning? We're not.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think it was Wayne Dyer that used to say that he used to cut holes in the pockets of his pants so that he can remember that he can't carry anything with him to the afterlife. And I love that. It's so true. We come here completely bare, and we're going to leave completely bare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perspective too, that we're not, it's not all about the physical. There's so
Mhm.
much more meaning to life than like the things that we fill our days with, the
Totally.
pressures we feel societally, learned behaviors that we're facing.
And our mind, right? Like they say the subconscious is 90, 95% of the mind, meaning our thoughts that we're having. I think that we have over 50,000 thoughts a day, and 95% of them are repetitive.
Yeah.
Like we are
Oh yeah.
like that. That's why awareness is so important, right?
All
Because
right.
like we are not our thoughts, we are the witnesser of those thoughts. We are
Yep.
not our clothes, we are the essence behind this body, right? So
Oh, absolutely.
yeah. Yeah,
So
so
tell me
that
about
was
our other steps.
so two more steps. So
Yep.
next is self-love, which is quite the word these
Well, and
days.
aligned though with everything. Yeah, if you don't have that in this, I could see how that could be hurtful.
Yeah, and it's again for me the path through past lives and subconscious work, and I started to get into somatic therapy at the
Mm,
time as well. And I'm a learner. I love to learn. I love to read. So that's how that all unfolded for me. But self-love again, it was not loving myself because I proved something. It was loving myself in spite of it. It is
Hmm.
it's a remembrance. And sorry, I love quotes, but I'm going to say it again. It's not about becoming anything. It's about unbecoming everything you're not.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's what self-love was to me.
Yeah.
I often tell people to, I have one right here, a photograph of me when I'm 1 years old. Like, when did that
Love that.
shift? When did we look at ourselves and start to say something's wrong with my body, something's wrong with my mind? Because we came into this world like a complete ball of love with complete self-acceptance. And that changed at some point, about the return to the truth of
Right.
who we are.
Well, and when we just had our alignment series, that's kind of like what we came up with, is it's not about like refinding yourself. It's actually figuring out where you've abandoned yourself in order to regain those pieces so you can fully align with you. And our systems, our cultures, there's a lot of opportunities to abandon yourself, the roles we carry, the hats we wear, but it doesn't service you in the end. You have to figure out and identify where you're doing that and not,
Mm-hmm.
essentially.
Exactly.
And it is an
Exactly.
act of self-love to evaluate that.
Exactly. And that's really, when we're talking about purpose, that's the process,
Yep.
right? Like, if we're talking, it's again, it's the unbecoming, it's the remembering, it
Right.
is the expression, it is the play, it is the self-trust, it is doing the disciplined habits again and again and again, longer than you
Right.
think you're going to need to. All of those into unapologetic self-love. I am because I am. I love myself because I love myself, period. No other reason, right?
Right.
And that leads into self confidence, which is really the last step towards self realization. Self confidence doesn't come from doing the thing, it comes from all of those pieces that have led the way to being like, again, I am that I am. That is what it is. I am that I am, and I am here to express my unique blueprint in this world. And I am an evolving energy, and it'll shift and change, and all of that is okay.
It's incredible.
Thank you. Thanks for seeing me.
Well, and I have chills because it's a lot of what we talk about, but I love that you're putting steps to it and your story to it. And just like I can literally in my head envision this like pattern going back and forth of your story and these steps and how people can actually implement these things in their own lives as well, learning through your story. So that's so powerful and impactful. Are you so
Thank you.
excited for this book to come out? Ah!
I'm tremendously, like, it's a very vulnerable experience, as I know you know.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want to write it, but here it is. And I am excited because this is how I feel connected to other people. So when
Yeah.
social media, I took a big break for a few years. Now I'm back on because I'm launching this book. But I feel like, to me, when I hear, oh my God, your story about this made me think about my own story with this,
Yep.
that connection is what it's all about for me. So yes, I'm excited. I'm intensely nervous in a good, like, excited is the same thing, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we
You
put
know?
ourselves out there and have that
Yeah.
much vulnerability, it makes
Yeah.
sense. But it's
Yeah.
start to a journey and it's exciting to get to
Exactly.
share ourselves with others.
Thank you.
People
Yeah,
are,
and that's what
yeah,
it's about. It's about the connection.
completely.
This is what if I had a purpose in life, it is to be connected to others.
Yeah.
That's what it's my
Well, and
true purpose.
it's being vulnerable enough to connect
Yeah, fair
because we can
enough.
avoid it just as easily, just as
I mean,
consistency.
we've
Hmm.
learned very well how to avoid our own authenticity. And
Easier to do.
I had a psychic many years ago tell me I was going to be living in Costa Rica, hosting groups and retreats. And it was so far away from my life that I was living at the time. And I was like, what is this crazy person talking about?
You're like, this
And
psychic sucks.
I'm here, I am living, like, she pulled a card, and it was like literally me with my curly hair sitting in a jungle looking at an ocean, which is, where I live. It's literally exactly that. And so I think, whether or not you believe that it's all predestined or not, it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter, really. I think the path back is by playing with all of those steps and really, being open enough to just look a little
Right.
deeper.
Well, and I hope that's what all of our listeners do, is look a little deeper and really follow these steps that you've laid out for us. And also get your book, which we will attach
Thank
the
you.
link so everybody can go and buy.
August 18th.
Yay! That will be so fun. And then
Thank you.
also, and we can always edit things, but I know you said depending on when this is coming out, you're
Mhm.
also launching a contest to win a retreat with you in Costa Rica.
Yeah, I am. I'm just figuring out the legalities of all of that, but that's the plan. Yeah, that's the
Very
plan. That for
fun.
anyone who buys a book on August 18th will enter to win a chance to come join me here, because this is like part of the retreats I run are very much based on those steps. Like, how do we come closer back to ourselves? So yeah,
I love that. Well, and maybe
exciting.
too, just sharing with us your retreat calendar. So anyone who wants to come work through these steps with you can come join you on a retreat.
Yes, I haven't launched those officially yet, but soon, soon.
Perfect.
Yeah, and then we're like in all of the enhancement stages. So we're buying the saunas and we're figuring out the sheets and we're interviewing chefs and all the
Oh,
things
that's so
that
fun.
make it coming home to yourself, make the outside a perfect stage so that the inside could take place.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I might be joining you on this retreat. That
You're
sounds
gonna
amazing.
I would love to have you join me
Oh,
here. You're
that'd be
awesome. And I
amazing.
could talk to you forever, honestly. You're
Oh,
so
this has been so easy. I know. It's so interesting when you have a good interview that flows, and I love it. Well,
yeah, I'm
thank
like, and
you.
time.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you. Listeners, we will share all the links to the book, links to socials, all of those things. But thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Hannah. Thanks, everyone.